Failure is something we're taught to avoid. Society rewards progress, success and achievement. But what happens when you fail and there's no way to undo it? Because in Breath of the Wild, the world has already ended, and instead of stopping that failure, the game asks something much harder. How do you live after it? For so long, I wanted to make videos about forms of media and concepts that I love. For years I told myself I would, but it rarely happened. I felt like a failure. I know a lot of you will understand that feeling. It's something that has plagued humans since, well, the inception of recorded history. I decided to play through all of the Zelda games again, including the ones I've never played before. I replayed Breath of the Wild, and this time with a more developed mind, I was able to spot a glaring reminder of a lesson I often forget to live by, especially when I feel like I'm not doing enough. At the start of the game, we awaken as Link, having lost our memories. We are greeted into the waking world by a jolly old man. Happy to help us learn the ropes, his upbeat attitude paints a stark contrast to the ruined nation of Hyrule. Once we have gathered our bearings, he reveals himself to be King Rhoam Bosphoramus Hyrule, the last king before Calamity Ganon struck. He leaves the fate of Hyrule in the hands of Link, telling him that Princess Zelda has been waiting 100 years to be rescued by him. During the game, many locations trigger Link to remember fragments of his memories. One of these is a flashback of King Rhoam scolding and belittling Zelda. He treats her like a child, accuses her of not taking her destiny seriously and that her lack of responsibility will doom the world. Zelda is clearly distraught by her father's treatment of her. The emotional trauma he subjects her to stunts her growth. It stops her from accessing her power. Zelda is truly forced to be someone she just isn't. We can see this in a moment like the flashback where she attempts to coerce Link into consuming frogs for an experiment. We see her passion, her smile, and her laugh. We see the real person she is under the pressure of her responsibilities. Even when she travels to various shrines meant for unlocking her latent power, it does nothing. When Zelda is disheartened by this, Mipha attempts to explain that channeling that power comes from an emotional place, not a place of logic and pressure. This lends itself nicely to the idea that Zelda's true self is being suppressed. But Mipha never fully explains. Ganon awakens and Zelda is ultimately powerless. Her vulnerability almost gets Link killed. She ends up keeping Ganon sealed in Hyrule Castle for 100 years as a last resort. When we meet Rhoam on the Great Plateau, he has spent a century watching the consequences of the calamity unfold. He cannot undo what happened. He cannot save Zelda himself. All he can do is place his faith in Link and hope that Hyrule is given a second chance. Like many characters in Breath of the Wild, he is left to live with the consequences of failure rather than escape them. Now that we have established the flashpoint for failure in Breath of the Wild, we can see how it affected others at that moment, and how the people in the present live with it. The four champions each failed too, and left behind consequences their tribes are forced to live with. Sidon, Prince of the Zoras, grew up in the shadow of his sister champion Mipha's death. Mipha was quiet, and gained the affection of her people through grace. The older generation of Zoras spent the last 100 years mourning her death. Their refusal to let go of that grief poisoned their attitude towards Hylians. Most people in Sidon's situation could easily have ended up bitter, overprotective, and developed a hatred for Hylians too. He could have become defined by loss, but instead chooses to be relentlessly optimistic. He adopts hope as his signature leadership style. He lifts those up around him, including Link, quite literally. Sidon does not submit to grief. He transforms it. The older generation laments and clings to the memory of Mipha like a double-edged sword. But Sidon's efforts result in the younger generation adoring and looking up to him. they come to be more accepting than their elders. In fact, they all help Sidon seek out capable Hylian candidates to help resolve the issue with the rampaging divine beast Vah-Ruta. Despite King Dorephan losing his daughter Mipha to the Calamity, he never once blames Link, or the Hylians. We see the grief in his face when Mipha is mentioned. He and Sidon rarely mention Mipha compared to the other Zora. Not out of lack of love, of course, but out of acceptance. Zelda's failure was because of her father's parenting, but Sidon's success is the result of King Dorephan's parenting in spite of Mipha's failure and death. Yunobo is the descendant of the fearless champion Daruk. However, Yunobo is extremely timid by nature. When Link first finds him, he is hiding inside of a giant skull, using Daruk's protection. The interesting thing about Yunobo is that in spite of constant dangers around him, including the possessed divine beast Vah-Rudania, he does not let that fear stop him from doing what he feels is right. He braves the Lizarfal's riddled northern mines to get painkillers for the village elder. And when the village elder is rendered helpless, he even joins Link to challenge Vah-Rudania. After Link has calmed the divine beast, we see Daruk's spirit concerned with what state his failure has left his people in. Daruk's strength did not prepare his people to face fear without him, but when he notices Yunobo, his worries are quelled, because Yunobo proves that even though courage is not inherited, it can be built. True bravery is forging ahead in spite of fear, in spite of failures that past generations leave to us. Revali, the champion of the Rito, acted purely out of pride, ego, and all for the sake of recognition. Even being the most skillful of all Rito, he was jealous of others that outshined him. His unwillingness to accept help was his failure as a champion. However, Teba, a present generation Rito warrior who respects the legendary skill of Revali, has no need for recognition. He is concerned only with defending his people. In fact, Teba's introduction completely contrasts to Revali's flashback. Link has to go out of his way to find Teba. Both Revali and Teba test Link before allowing him to help. Revali gives Link a challenge he believes is completely unrealistic to achieve. On the other hand, Teba gives Link a trial to see if he is competent enough to help. Whereas Revali never has any intention to accept Link, Teba does so without hesitation once seeing how dependable he is. Teba deals with the failure of Revali by being responsible for his wife, child, and people. He takes a stand because no one else will, because everyone was scared to try again after Revali's failure. Urbosa is presented as the most complete champion. She represents strength and confidence. This is reflected in the fact that she is the only champion to give Link a truly offensive ability. She is also shown in a flashback to be emotionally intelligent. She reads the emotions of Link and the tension between him and Zelda like it was second nature. Following her legacy would be a brutal pair of shoes for anyone to fill, especially when someone that the Gerudo saw as so great failed in the end. Riju, the current leader of the Gerudo, is young, internally uncertain, and clearly overwhelmed. Yet she steps into the role of leadership. Her youth makes Urbosa's strengths hard to achieve in her present, so she must practice and learn caution and decision-making under uncertainty. She lives with Urbosa's failure by adopting shrewdness of mind to navigate her problems. She recognized Link not as just a man, but the Hylian champion. She uses this knowledge to her advantage by employing Link's help. She knows she doesn't have the strength needed to resolve the issue of the divine beast Vah-Naboris on her own. The descendants of each tribe become exactly who they need to be in order to change the world for the better. This happens because failure leaves emotional and cultural imprints. Psychologists like Carl Jung describe this as something deeper, something we inherit without even realizing. Ironically, the linking factor in Breath of the Wild's story is, well, Link. We as the player see everything through his perspective. His memories detail the failures of the champions and people of the past, and we see how the current generation lives with the lingering effects those failures brought 100 years after. The reason Link makes the perfect vessel for the story is because his personal failure is arguably the most important one we see come full circle. And he is the only person who has the immediate freedom to do something about his own failure. It won't change the past, but it can change the future. The chosen hero destined to defeat the great evil, yet he failed. He comes together with the current generation, all living with the failures of those past, in order to vanquish the evil once and for all. Link doesn't undo his failure. He lives with it, learns from it, and still moves forward. And maybe that's the real lesson. Not how to avoid failure, but how to keep going after it. Thank you for watching my video. I appreciate you for listening to my experience and what I got out of this game. I hope you enjoyed the video and the overall message. I plan to make more videos on the Legend of Zelda series in the future, so if that's something you like, feel free to join me.